And being frank, if it were not for women giving me direct feedback in my own personal life and being, being a man who was willing to at least listen to them, there's no chance that I would be having this conversation. So the message, to answer your question, the message is very simple. As men, we need to embrace all of the parts of us that make us human. That's it.
It is.
It's very simple.
The glamorous side of Hollywood often distracts us from the drama simmering beneath the surface. Sometimes, it just takes one startling move, a sudden attorney resignation, for instance, to shatter the carefully built illusions of a star's perfect persona. That's exactly what happened when Blake Lively's longtime legal representative abruptly walked away from her recent controversy. This startling development set off alarm bells across the film industry and left fans grappling with a startling question. If even Blake's own lawyer won't support her story, just how solid is her case? Today, we're diving into the tangled conflict between Blake and actor-director Justin Baldoni during the production of the much-anticipated film It Ends With Us. What started as a routine adaptation of a beloved novel soon spiraled into bitter accusations, backstage bickering, and leaked text messages. Now, with legal documents flying around and industry insiders whispering about questionable motives, everything points to a narrative far deeper and more explosive than anyone imagined. Keep watching as we peel back the layers of this astonishing saga. By the end, you'll see how a once-adored star found herself under scrutiny unlike anything she's faced before, and why the very person hired to protect her might have delivered the most damaging blow of all. 4 years, Blake Lively managed to maintain a near-flawless public image. Audiences admired her for that mix of high-wattage glamour and down-to-earth charm. She often came across as witty in interviews, shared just enough of her personal life to seem relatable, and dazzled on red carpets without ever appearing unapproachable. The media ate it up, elevating her to fashion icon status. Fans described her as someone who could walk into a high-profile award ceremony in designer couture and still feel like the friendly neighbor you'd chat with at the grocery store. But even Hollywood's brightest facades can hide well-kept secrets. Whispers occasionally surfaced hinting that Blake had an intense streak behind closed doors. Some pointed to her meticulous attention to detail, especially regarding her looks and how she was presented in the press. Others claimed she had a competitive side that could flare up whenever she felt overshadowed. Most people brushed those rumors off, chalking them up to the usual blend of envy and gossip swirling around any popular celebrity. That all changed when news about a rocky collaboration on the film set of It Ends With Us began leaking. Fans first picked up on subtle clues. Blake's interviews had a different vibe. Her usually effusive praise for colleagues seemed muted. She'd make offhand remarks that sounded suspiciously like digs at the production. Soon, tabloids grabbed hold of the story, and a storm of speculation brewed about what was happening behind the scenes. Could this star, so beloved for her polished elegance, really be at the center of a messy power struggle? Meanwhile, Hollywood insiders whispered about unverified accounts of disagreements involving the director, Justin Baldoni.
I think the idea that people think that they know you, I think because of how intrusive media is these days, people care so much more about your personal life than they do your work, and if you aren't open with your personal life, then they just make it up for you and share it for you.
The friction reportedly ranged from small tiffs about creative choices to more personal clashes involving alleged text messages. The tabloids began framing the issue as a major rift between two big personalities. Yet nobody expected the situation to escalate to the point where legal representation would walk away, and in such a public fashion. But to truly understand how things spiraled to that degree, we need to rewind and look at It Ends With Us, the project that set the stage for all this chaos. Few novels in recent memory have stirred as much passion as It Ends With Us. Readers around the world embraced its emotional storyline, and a film adaptation felt inevitable. Fans eagerly awaited any tidbits about casting, script changes, or directorial choices. Then came the big announcement. Justin Baldoni, known for his heartfelt storytelling, was not only directing the adaptation but also co-writing the screenplay and playing a leading role. Many believed he was the perfect fit to translate the novel's tenderness and depth onto the big screen. Enter Blake Lively. When word got out that she had been cast, excitement soared. Her polished image and proven box office appeal were considered assets that could lift It Ends With Us to mainstream success. At first glance, Blake and Justin seemed like a dream team, two personalities often described as warm, empathetic, and eager to connect with fans. Interviews around that time were all about synergy. Blake praising Justin's vision and Justin talking about Blake's unique capacity to elevate emotional roles. But that harmony was short-lived. On the surface, press conferences and set visits depicted a wholesome environment where everyone was committed to making the best film possible. Gossip columns, however, told a different story. Speculation grew that tensions stemmed from Justin's multiple hats as director, co-writer, and star. Some insiders whispered that Blake, a celebrity accustomed to center stage, felt overshadowed by Justin's broad creative control. Others claimed that Justin was too hands-on, micromanaging both behind the camera and in rehearsals. At first, the rumors seemed too vague to carry weight. After all, creative disagreements on a film set are nothing new. Yet, the chatter persisted. Certain crew members hinted that friction was building on a daily basis. Personality clashed was the phrase used most often in hushed conversations. Blake apparently wanted more say in the filming process, while Justin sought to keep the production aligned with his vision for the novel's adaptation. Still, the real trouble began when gossip moved from hushed set chatter to the digital realm. Screenshots of text messages started circulating, some allegedly from Blake, some from Justin, and others from people close to them. Almost overnight, fans and onlookers could see the tension was more than just rumored friction. It was a developing crisis. But how did those quiet disagreements explode into a controversy so big it landed in the tabloids and led to a legal meltdown? Let's follow the first signs of discord that set the stage for Hollywood's latest scandal. The first hints of trouble seeped into the public domain through cryptic quotes during promotional interviews. Normally, Blake was known for her effusive compliments toward co-stars and directors, peppered with anecdotes about on-set harmony. This time, though, her statements seemed guarded. She'd answer questions about Justin in a polite but short manner, avoiding her trademark enthusiasm.
That ended up actually getting picked up and doing very well, and I was one of two people maybe, and then I get a call from my managers and my agent, and they were both on the line, which means it's something serious.
Right.
Either you got the job or there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And they said, so you were the choice, but the network said that your eyebrows would be too distracting.
Oh. What?
Oh no.
And then they went like, so what can we do about your eyebrows?
Fans noticed something was off when one interviewer asked her about working with a director who was also her co-star. Blake smiled but gave a non-committal response about balancing creative visions. Observers read between the lines. On social media, theories sprouted. Did she resent Justin's approach? Was there friction over top billing? Or were there deeper issues at play? Justin, for his part, tried to maintain a calm exterior in the media. He spoke about unity, empathy, and creating an atmosphere where every voice was heard. For a while, the public believed him. After all, he had a history of championing sensitive storytelling and giving actors plenty of room to collaborate. But behind closed doors, tensions apparently ran much higher than outside appearances suggested. That's when the first wave of leaked messages hit gossip sites. Some texts seemed to show Blake complaining that Justin's role as both director and lead actor made her feel sidelined. She allegedly vented about how decisions were being taken without her input. Speculation ran rampant that she wanted more creative influence. Fans, initially inclined to sympathize with Blake, especially since women in Hollywood often have less power, began to wonder if Justin was overshadowing her. But other messages told a more complicated story. There were references to Blake's so-called dragons, a cryptic term some interpreted as her influential circle in Hollywood, people who could sway aspects of production, marketing, or press coverage if they so wished. Suddenly, the dynamic between Blake and Justin began looking like a tug-of-war over control, with each side claiming the other was orchestrating behind-the-scenes maneuvers. It reached a boiling point when tabloids reported that Blake suspected Justin of feeding negative rumors to the media. She claimed she had evidence of him orchestrating a smear campaign designed to belittle her contributions and paint her as difficult to work with. Some fans believed her, pointing out that male directors have historically sidelined female leads. Others were more skeptical, noting that Justin's entire brand was built around fostering positive environments. The standoff accelerated, and the conversation was about to shift from open secrets to unstoppable leaks. But text messages alone didn't ignite the firestorm. Things took a dramatic turn when allegations and legal demands entered the picture, thrusting Blake's claims into an even harsher spotlight. The situation escalated from a festering rumor mill to a veritable media circus when entire chat threads found their way online. At first, only scattered screenshots appeared, seemingly out of context. They hinted that Blake was aggressively asserting control, attempting to influence how co-stars were positioned at press events, pushing for script changes, and threatening to withdraw from promotional duties if certain demands weren't met. She also spoke of her power circle, suggesting she had resources to influence critical aspects of production and marketing. Justin's camp responded with their own set of purported messages. According to them, Justin had tried to keep the peace. He expressed respect for Blake's creative insights, yet he also firmly reminded her of contractual obligations and the overall direction the film needed to maintain. The stark difference between the two sets of messages was jarring. In Blake's version, Justin was either indifferent to her concerns or actively hostile. In Justin's version, he came across as a director juggling the normal challenges of a production, frustrated by an actress who seemed determined to control every detail. Fans were caught in the crossfire. On social media, #TeamBlake and #TeamJustin trended. The drama spilled onto gossip shows, where pundits dissected every potential motive and speculated about hidden agendas. Some said Justin's spiritual, empathetic persona was a front for a micromanager. Others believed Blake's polished public image masked the ambitions of someone who wasn't used to hearing no. Then came the legal filings. Blake's attorney released statements accusing Justin of unprofessional behavior and emotional manipulation. Her team claimed there were uncomfortable moments on set that had not been addressed, including situations where Blake felt her boundaries were disrespected. The attorney's announcements were initially met with sympathy, particularly from those who believed women in Hollywood frequently face downplaying of their legitimate concerns. But the momentum quickly shifted when Justin's team unveiled unredacted versions of the same text messages Blake's side had cherry-picked. The context changed dramatically. Instances Blake portrayed as violations of her privacy now looked like voluntary situations, sometimes even invitations extended to Justin. Scenes she described as emotionally distressing came across, in the full transcripts, as routine production hurdles. Suddenly, the wave of support for Blake stalled. The public was confused and unsure who to trust. Enter the final, most shocking twist: the abrupt exit of Blake's attorney, coupled with a carefully worded statement that signaled far more than a simple parting of ways. This controversial resignation gave credence to doubts about Blake's narrative and set off a whirlwind of speculation across the industry. In Hollywood, attorneys represent more than just legal interests. They often function as damage control strategists, quietly managing disputes so the star's public image remains intact. Rarely do they walk away from a high-profile client during a tense and public legal battle, especially in a manner that suggests their client has been misleading them.
I mean, I internalized that as opportunity. We had such a responsibility to this audience to deliver something and to have the opportunity to deliver something for a passionate group of people.
Yes.
As someone who is so deeply passionate myself, I was so excited about that. I would so much rather have that than people who are indifferent.
Blasé.
That's precisely what happened here. Blake Lively's longtime lawyer, celebrated for handling delicate celebrity feuds with a steady hand, abruptly withdrew from the case. Instead of quietly filing the usual legal paperwork, they released a public statement implying that they could no longer ethically stand behind Blake's claims. The statement was carefully phrased. No one was outright calling Blake dishonest or using direct accusations, but the implications were undeniable. This was no ordinary attorney-client split. Hollywood insiders scrambled to interpret the announcement. Some speculated that the lawyer had gained access to more comprehensive evidence or testimony that didn't align with Blake's account. Others believed the attorney was distancing themselves to protect their own reputation. After all, openly supporting a potentially exaggerated or fabricated story could risk severe professional repercussions down the line. Unsurprisingly, the press devoured every morsel of information about the resignation. Journalists uncovered rumors that the lawyer had discovered more text messages, possibly messages that showed Blake intentionally reshaping production problems into personal grievances. According to certain insiders, these communications revealed a calculated strategy, stirring up controversies on set, then framing them as hostile or negligent behavior by Justin. With no cohesive response from Blake's side, everything was cast into disarray. The sudden exit by her own legal counsel put a massive dent in her credibility, overshadowing her previous claims of victimhood. Even some who had stood by her were forced to reconsider. If the attorney felt compelled to withdraw so dramatically, what did that say about Blake's allegations? Blake herself went quiet for a period, issuing no new statements. Whether she was strategizing behind the scenes, or simply reeling from the betrayal, remains a point of speculation. Meanwhile, Justin found himself with an unexpected advantage. He no longer had to actively defend his side of the story. The statement from Blake's ex-lawyer did most of that for him. Now that the attorney's dramatic exit had rattled the industry, fans and observers alike started taking a harder look at every claim Blake had made. Were they valid, or were they fragments of a carefully orchestrated performance? In the wake of the attorney's departure, social media lit up with intense debates. For the longest time, Blake Lively had been the sweetheart of Hollywood. Her devout admirers saw her as a style icon and a grounded performer. Yet suddenly, they faced unsettling revelations from multiple sources.
But I was like just tracking him down, and then I finally got to read the script, and the script was a thriller. So that was a little confusing to me because he's like such a funny director.
Could she have magnified or even fabricated certain details to gain sympathy? Two camps emerge. Those who still back Blake. These individuals maintain that the attorney might be acting on personal ambition or caving under pressure from Justin's powerful network. They argue that women in the industry are often shamed into silence when they speak up about discomfort or creative disagreements. Perhaps, they reason, the lawyer's exit was a strategic maneuver to protect other clients or curry favor with influential Hollywood decision-makers. Those who feel misled. On the flip side, a growing segment of the fan base and neutral observers now suspect that Blake deliberately twisted normal filmmaking hurdles into scandalous claims. They point to the unredacted texts as evidence that her initial statements left out crucial context. Some go further, accusing her of launching a smear campaign against Justin, one that crumbled when full records came to light. As the debate raged online, Hollywood power brokers watched closely. Casting directors and producers began whispering about whether Blake was worth the trouble for future projects. Meanwhile, some crew members from It Ends With Us stepped forward, anonymously in most cases, to describe interactions that seemed far less dramatic than how Blake had publicly characterized them. One production assistant recalled a time she insisted on reshooting a scene multiple times, only to later cite those same scenes in interviews as examples of the production's alleged lack of emotional support. This backlash was no small hiccup in a celebrity's career. For a star with a carefully polished public brand, the potential long-term damage was staggering. Even if Blake chose to remain silent, the internet wouldn't simply forget. The controversy had taken on a life of its own, fueling all manner of theories about her motives, the roles of her influential friends, those dragons she mentioned, and whether Justin was indeed the innocent party. And amid this evolving narrative, one figure emerged appearing more vindicated than ever: Justin Baldoni. How did the tide turn so decisively in his favor? By the time the attorney resigned, Justin had already endured weeks of intense scrutiny. Initially, he tried to keep the focus on the film. But when accusations piled up, he had little choice but to defend himself, releasing text messages to counter claims of impropriety. These efforts kept him afloat, but it was the exit of Blake's lawyer that truly shifted the narrative in his favor. People who'd been on the fence suddenly saw reason to doubt Blake's side of the story. After all, it's exceedingly rare for a high-profile attorney to publicly distance themselves from a client during a major media controversy. Their job is to fix problems and manage reputations, not leave a star vulnerable. The fact that this lawyer essentially walked away, while implying that Blake's story might conflict with hard evidence, spoke volumes. For Justin, the situation was bittersweet. On one hand, nobody wants to see a collaborative effort marred by scandal. On the other, the public statements from Blake's own legal counsel functioned as an indirect endorsement of his innocence. Instead of continuing to wage a bitter PR war, he could shift his focus back to finalizing the film and letting the dust settle. Hollywood can be fickle, but it also abides by certain unspoken rules. One of them is this: if you can prove you've been wronged or falsely accused, studios and colleagues usually rally around you. Directors, producers, and other potential collaborators began viewing Justin as the party who was mischaracterized. He wasn't merely surviving the controversy, he was gaining a reputation as someone who had weathered a heavy storm and come out with his integrity largely intact. On the fan side, new waves of support came rolling in. People lauded Justin for choosing not to retaliate further, other than clarifying text messages that were made public. He focused his interviews on emotional storytelling, mental health advocacy, and respect for the source material of It Ends With Us. Some even praised his restraint, pointing out that he could have easily escalated the scandal by revealing more damning evidence but chose not to. Meanwhile, Blake was left with a collapsing narrative. The more her claims were questioned, the more fans dissected every statement she'd made. The tide of public opinion turned sharply. The actress, once known for her breezy humor and fashionable flair, was now at risk of being branded as manipulative, someone who might twist facts to ensure she remained the center of attention. But in Hollywood, it's never quite over until it's truly over. Let's look at where things stand now and what the lasting impact of this scandal might be, for both Blake and Justin. After weeks of jaw-dropping twists, countless leaked messages, and an attorney's shocking resignation, Blake Lively finds herself in uncharted territory. The once unassailable reputation she enjoyed has taken a serious hit. Overnight, she went from beloved icon to the subject of harsh speculation about her motives and honesty. Whether she plans to continue her fight or quietly let the issue fade remains unclear. But as rumors swirl of possible depositions or even more legal battles, one thing is certain: any future move she makes will be closely scrutinized. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni stands on more stable ground than ever. Far from being destroyed by the accusations, he's benefiting from an unusual form of public vindication. The shift in public sentiment has reinforced his image as a collaborative, compassionate filmmaker who became the target of misguided allegations. While no one welcomes negative press, he's managed to come out looking stronger, his credibility intact, if not enhanced. The legal system will move at its own pace, and the court of public opinion will continue to sway with each new revelation. Blake's biggest challenge now might be winning back the trust of an audience that once adored her. Justin's challenge will be ensuring this scandal doesn't overshadow the film's emotional essence. If more evidence emerges, we may yet see further transformations in how we perceive these stars. But one lesson stands out above all: sometimes, the most damaging blows don't come from your adversary. They come from the unexpected exit of an ally who, upon realizing the truth, can no longer stand by your side. That's precisely the reality Blake Lively faces. In an industry built on carefully curated images, where perceptions can shatter in an instant, losing your lawyer's confidence can be the final, and most devastating, straw. Will Blake recover and prove her detractors wrong? Or is this controversy destined to follow her for years to come? Only time, and possibly a judge or jury, will provide those answers. For now, all we can do is watch, speculate, and ponder how one of Hollywood's brightest stars found herself trapped in a storyline more dramatic than any movie she's ever starred in.